In this video, we will look at how to create an HTML element or an HTML node in JavaScript and insert it into the HTML document. So in my text editor, I'll create my index.html file and then my script.js file, and then I'll create a boilerplate code quickly. So I'll just put here h1 and say creating HTML elements or nodes in JS, and then I'll run this, I'll save this. But before I do that, let me put my script here, which is script.js or my JavaScript file, and then using live server, I'll run this in my browser. Good. So as you can see, let me just zoom out a bit. I think it's okay. So what I want us to do is we'll create a to-dos arrays and then loop through the to-dos and then create an li or a list item and insert it into the HTML document using JavaScript. So before I do that, I'll just put a UL here with a class of to-do list and save. So just this UL here. Then first of all, I'll come here and then select it. So I'll just say UL equals document.query selector. Then I'll select it using the class, which is what to-do list. And then I'll create my array of to-dos. So I'll just put here, say walk the dog, water the plant, read a book, what else? Clean the house. And I think it's okay or it's enough. I can just put something here. Let's say code JavaScript and save. So what I'll do is we'll loop through these to-dos arrays and then create a list item and then insert it into our HTML document. So first of all, I'll say to-dos dot for each to do. I'll use the JavaScript array function here, syntax here. So I'll say for each to do. First of all, we'll create an li, so which is equal to document dot. We use the createElement method. So this is the method that we use in creating what HTML elements in JavaScript. So you can see that my text editor is giving me auto completion of all the HTML elements that we can create. So you can see button, a div, a section, a form, h1 to h5. All these image is here, input is here, all of them are here. So we'll just create an li. So that's the li. So what we'll do is we'll set the text content of the li to what? The to do. So I'll just say text content equals to do and save. So as of now, we are not seeing anything. So I'll go ahead and then append the li to this ul here. So we already selected our ul here. So I'll just say ul.appenChild and then put my li here and save. So by so doing, you can see that the to-dos are appearing here. So this is what the li's that are appearing here. When I go into my console tab here and go to the element, and then let me just enlarge this a bit and then open this up. So over here you can see that in this ul we have all the li's in the DOM over here. So you can see these li's here in the DOM. So this is how we can create an element. So I can go ahead and say li.classList. So I can add a class to them. I'll just say add and then put a class of, let's say, to do item here and save. And when we go to our DOM here, and I open this, you see that all of them have a class of what? To do item. So this is how we can create HTML elements or HTML nodes in JavaScript and then add them to the DOM. So I'll just go ahead and comment all this one out, and then we'll look at another way that we can create and then insert elements through the DOM through an input. So I'll just put a form here. I'll remove the action attribute, and then I'll just put an input element here with a class of input, and then add a button with a class of btn, and then say add to do and save. So this input element and then the button is here. So I think that's all for the HTML syntax. So in my JavaScript file, we've commented all those things out. So I'll go ahead and select my URL again, which is document.querySelector, which has a class of to-do list. I'll select the button. I'll just say btn for button, document.querySelector with a class of what? btn, and then the input element. So I'll just put input here, which is document.querySelector with a class of input, and save. So we have selected all these elements. So let's go back to our HTML. So the input, the button, and then the to-do list URL. So what we'll do is that whenever someone types a to-do here and press the button, it will be appended to the DOM over here. So I'll go ahead and then first of all create a function called add to do. So I'll just say const add to do, which will be an arrow function. So first of all, we'll have to get the valued from this input element. So this is how we do. So I'll just say const to do text and set it to, let me write this properly, to do text, and set it to the input, our input dot value, then dot trim. So the trim, not that, dot trim. The trim will just remove any white space before that is being added to the text that has been placed, or the value that has been typed in the input element here. So the value is the main thing. We are getting the value from this input what element. So I'll go ahead and then write a little bit if statements here. I'll just say if to do text is equal to an empty string, just what return. It will not do anything. So it will prevent us from adding spaces, or a user from adding spaces. It's not the best validation, but it will do something. Then the next thing we'll do is that we'll create our LIs. So I'll just say const li equals document.createElement and put li here. So mind you, it's not only li that we can create. We can create any HTML element using the createElement method, and we can create text nodes as well using that createTextNode method as well. So that is it. So I've created a li. One thing I want to do is that what I want a delete button to be attached to this li. So I'll create a delete button. So I'll just say delete btn and set it to document.querySelector, and then put a button here. Sorry, not query selector. It should be createElement, because we want to create our own button in JavaScript. So createElement and put button here. So this one we are creating a button, and then I'll set the text content. So I'll just say delete btn dot text content and set it to what? Delete. So that will be the content of the button, and then I'll add a class of, let's say, delete button. So I'll just say delete button dot classList dot add, access the add method, and then add a delete button class here. So we'll look at the reason why I did this. So whenever we are adding classes, we don't put the dot, or maybe you want to add something, we don't put the dot here. We just write the name of the class, and then we can access that class in our CSS file, but we'll look at that shortly. So this is my delete button that will be created. So I'll go ahead and write li. I'll add an event listener to the list item, that whenever someone click on it, it will toggle the to do to be completed. So I'll just say li.add event listener. I'll pass in a click event, and then I'll just pass in an arrow function quickly, and then I'll just say li.classList.toggle then we'll toggle a class called completed, which we'll write in a CSS file shortly. Then I'll go ahead and then add another event listener to our delete button, so that we can delete we can delete a to do or a list, so which is also a click event. So I'll just say e dot. So right now we want to access the event. So I'll just put e here, which you can write event or evt. So e dot, I'll just say stop propagation. And then I'll say our listing, our ul dot remove child, and put the li there. So it will remove that li. And then we'll go ahead and then append the delete button to the li. So I'll just say li dot append child and add the delete button to it. And the next thing we'll do is we'll call the ul and then append child again and add what? Our li. And then finally, I want to clear the input after someone types something. So I'll just say input dot value and set it to an empty string. So that is it about that. So finally, we'll have to add, so this form here or this button, I'll add an event listener to this button. And then when this is being clicked, it will call the add to do method, or I can add it to the form. So let me just go ahead and then select the form and then add it to it. Even though I selected the button here, I just changed my mind. Let's just add it to the form. So I'll just say document dot query selector. So I'll just select it by the tag name, which is form. Then I can just change this here. So add event listener, and then we'll look for what? Listen for a click event. And then we'll have to access the event object. And then what we'll do is we say e dot prevent default. So forms have a default behavior that whenever you click it or you press enter, you type something, you press enter, it will reload automatically. So for instance, when I comment this out and then I just put something in my form here and then click this, you see that it reloads. So we want to prevent that default behavior. So that's why we use e.prevent default on this event object. So the next thing I'll do is just call my add to do function here and save. So let's check this out. So I'll just say walk the dog and press enter. You see that our to do is, we cannot see the to do item here. Let's go and see if I'm appending the value to the list. So this is the to do value, and then we are creating the list. So the mistake I did here was I didn't add the text content of the li to be equal to the to do text. So that was my mistake. So let's try this out again. Walk the dog and then press enter. Good, now we are getting it. So I'll type another one again. Let's say water the plant and press enter. So you see that these to-dos are being added here to our unordered list. And when I go to my console here, this element, let me just enlarge this quickly. Let me just go to the elements tab here and then enlarge this a bit. So when I come to my UI here, you see that we have these two to do items here: walk the dog and then water the plant. So our functionality or our to-do list is working. Let's click this delete button and see. So after clicking on it, you see that our to-dos are gone. So I'll just go ahead and then add them again. I'll just say walk the dog and then read a book and press enter. Is being added. And then the last one, let's say code JS, and now it is working. So we added some classes that when you click on the li, you should what? Toggle it as completed. So I'll just go ahead and then create a separate CSS file, which will just be style.css. And then I'll just put a class of completed here. Let me write that properly, completed. And then I'll just say I'll just set the color to, let's say, red. And then I'll say text decoration to strike through and save. So let me link this in my HTML file. Other than that, we will not see any results. So I'll just say style.css. So let me add my to-dos again. So I'll just say walk the dog read a book, then maybe water the plants. So when I go ahead and click on this, you see that our functionality is working. Our toggling of the class of completed is working. So when I click on it again, it toggle it off. When I click on it, it toggles it on. So I can see that when I click on this, it is what these to-dos have been completed. So when I click the delete, it will delete a to-do. When I click this one again, it will delete a to-do. So this is how we can create HTML elements and then add them to our DOM, our HTML document using JavaScript. That's all for this video. Please subscribe and like for this channel to grow and to support me. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.